And tonight, Justice Gertrude Tokonu, the Chief Justice, has declared war on corruption in the judiciary, pledging a relentless effort to rid the institution of corrupt elements. The Chief Justice, in a rare public event where she addressed the nation on her vision for the judiciary, says there are certain unknown faces who engage in corruption in the name of the judiciary. Years after the announced expose on corrupt judges, the institution is still yet to fully recover, with successive Afrobarometer reports showing that citizens still perceive the judiciary as corrupt. Now, this is what the Chief Justice says she is desperate to deal with. Listen.
I deeply crave, along with all well-wishers, I'm sure, to change the tag of corruption, ineptitude, and inefficiency around the neck of the judiciary and judicial service of Ghana. We cannot do this without the support and attention of all stakeholders. The Bangalore Principles of Judicial Conduct and the Latimer House Principles are international instruments that Ghana's judiciary are committed to. In order to shake off these tags, training needs to be supplemented with consistent culture-changing strategies to deepen ethical models of work in the courts. Judicial administration must close the gaps through which court users are subjected to exploitation and rent-seeking behavior. This demands the removal of as much of the human interfacing that court work is exposed to. Court officials are expected to work with independence, with impartiality, competence, and integrity. Much of these ethical values are lost in the heavy traffic of human interfacing between court officials and court users, including unknown brokers functioning around the courts. The vision for producing culture-changing reorientation programs cannot be achieved without the active participation, the active partnership and support of stakeholders, including communities of businesses and donors.
Okweku Asante of our Legal Affairs Desk was there for us and joins me in the studio right now. The Attorney General was also there and he spoke. And he has some words for the Chief Justice in terms of what he believes she should also be focusing on.
Yes, according to Godfred Yeboah-Dame, there are a lot of complaints about what he terms as the ineptitude of some judges. He believes that the Chief Justice's goal is really laudable, but for that to succeed, she should be able to deal with the issue of ineptitude judges that so many lawyers have complained about.
The leadership was encouraging you for this laudable initiative. May we remind ourselves that the greatest number of complaints about the justice delivery system in Ghana border on ineptitude of judges, attitude towards litigants and lawyers, as well as delays with the conclusion of cases. I'm of the fervent belief that your vision will result in a reduction of this phenomenon. Ultimately, in my respectful view, there also needs to be a rethinking of the exercise of the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to ensure that the workload of the Supreme Court is manageable and conducive to efficiency. Drawing on the practice and experience in other jurisdictions in and outside the common law world, the Supreme Court ought to be able to, by recourse to the enactment of regulations governing the multiplicity of jurisdictions conferred on it, and within the constraints of the Constitution, restrict the number of cases it has, especially on appeals from the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. This will result in the delivery of more quality justice by the highest court of the land. I say that it is a digitized environment. I say that a digitized environment results in transparency, accountability, and efficiency in the public sector, and ultimately helps to eliminate and prevent corruption. The prospect of improved productivity and reduction of costs that digitization brings requires that the judiciary embraces same fully. I have no doubt that we will achieve a fully digitized environment in the tenure of a leadership, the Chief Justice. Indeed, I see the era in which there will be the end. I see the era in which there will be the need for more virtual court houses, easily accessible to all from any part of the world, rather than physical courthouses constructed in communities and accessible to only a few, much closer than anticipated.
And Kweku, the Chief Justice obviously did this today. National address was pretty rare. Also present was a Vice President.
Yes, the Vice President talks about what he believes to be the government digitalization agenda, catching up with the Judiciary. He says he's excited that the Judiciary is also taking a step in coming close to digitalization. And as far as he's concerned, government is willing to give every support to the Chief Justice to achieve this.
Justice is not about its trappings, but its utility. I am happy that the Honorable Lady Chief Justice, just like her predecessors, has answered this important call, and by doing so is leading the third arm of the state to make the promise of our nation evident in the lives of our people and extend to all the protection that is theirs by birth. I note with great admiration and excitement the new impetus, focus, energy, and dynamism that her ladyship has brought to the administration of justice since she took over the reins of office less than a year ago. It is this new zeal and sense of urgency that has culminated in the vision that we are launching today, which would be the blueprint for her administration and point the way for the judiciary and the judicial service towards the goal that meets the justice demands of the 21st century and beyond.
I'm joined right now by lawyer and Vice President of Imani Africa, Kofi Bentil, joins me on phone. Also joining me is Professor Kweku Asare. He's a Democracy and Development Fellow at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD. I'm also joined by Bernard Ahiafo. He's a ranking member on the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me here on Top Story. And I want to start with you, Professor Kweku Asare. There's something that the Chief Justice said today that I want to put to you. Quote, she said, "The judiciary is not known for speaking beyond the corridors of the courts, and so it will not surprise me if many find this morning's event odd." Do you find this odd?
Thank you, Evans. Actually, I don't find it odd at all. I welcome it, and I commend the Chief Justice for the initiative. Look, the ability of the court to fulfill its core mission and perform its function critically depends on public trust and confidence. At a time when, in my opinion, public trust and confidence are at a low ebb, it is really important, and I would say it's an excellent idea for the Chief Justice to show up and speak to the people. I would advise her to do more rather than less of that. Of course, it is not always necessary to come out the way she did, but through the use of social media and other such outlets, the courts can maintain this channel of communication with the people. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. In Kenya, whenever the Supreme Court speaks through a court opinion, there's a court opinion that they write for the participants. And contemporaneously, they issue a summarized version of what it is that they are saying and make that immediately available to the media and to the public. So the public hears the court speaking in a language that they can understand, because often the opinion itself is laced with technicalities and not too many people in the public are interested in reading that. But the court gets around that by issuing this contemporaneous, simple press release that is understandable by most people. So the short answer to your question is I don't find it odd at all. I welcome it. I want to see more of that. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Chief Justice coming out and, with so many people talking. It can be through multiple channels. It has to be through their opinions and stuff like that.
I want to bring in Kofi Bento. Kofi, what about the risk of overexposure?
Good evening to everyone. Honestly, although theoretically we can say there's a risk of exposure, I don't see it. There is rather an overriding need for us to make justice and the delivery of justice and the institutions that deliver justice more amenable to ordinary understanding, appreciation, and acceptance. I think the traditional view that we ought to manage ourselves in a way that is esoteric, that ordinary people cannot understand, is actually not good for us. I am even looking for a day when this whole idea of discussing cases in court is no longer considered as contemptuous. I think that this fear of overexposure has rather created a situation where there is distrust in terms of how justice is wrapped. So, in short, I think the judges and the persons who are in charge of this are sufficiently matured, sufficiently experienced, and know how to conduct themselves properly in order not to overexpose themselves or the profession or the judicial service per se. I am not saying the risk is zero, but it is not more than any other risk. So this is a good thing. We must continue to work at it to make justice more understandable by the average person.
And Bernard, I have for you the ranking of the Constitutional Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament. Last week, the CJ for the first time held a press conference. He invited the press in, he spoke, and then she opened herself out to be questioned. And then today, we're just seeing her address a nation. Are you in support of this at the committee level? Hello, Bernard. Hello, Mr. Ahiafo. I may have lost him there. But I want to take that question to Professor Sari. Professor Sari, so the question about overexposure, which I put to Kofi Bento, I mean, considering how politically polarized our environment is, the executive gets its fair share of mudslinging. We've seen the politicians in Parliament get same, and then the bickering and back and forth then muddies every issue that we talk about. There's a real fear by some, and I've heard, for example, Professor Bafo Ejimendria warn that once you have the Chief Justice engaging these issues and holding press conferences, you drag the judiciary into this arena where it then become, fair game for the judiciary to be drawn into our very polarized political environment. Professor Sari.
No, I don't see it that way, unless the judges are coming to talk politics. They are not coming to talk politics. They should stay as far as they can away from the politics. And one way of showing that they are staying as far as they can from the politics is actually to come out and explain some of the things that they are doing. Once people have a good understanding and perhaps they accept what they are being told, then whatever the court is doing could be interpreted in a different framework rather than in a political framework. Look, most of the problems that the court tend to have arise when the court is dealing with matters of public interest and debate, often centered around politics. Once they render a decision in these type of cases, people on the political sphere or people on the political grounds tend to politicize what it is that the courts have done. And there's no problem with the Chief Justice or some member of the court or through a social media release for the court to clarify the principles that have guided their opinion so that the ordinary man or woman can understand that, yes, although we are dealing with a political issue, here is the reason why the court decided the issue in this way rather than that way. Having said that, I think the court has to go beyond merely speaking and let their opinions and their actions and their verdicts reflect what it is that they are also preaching. So, for instance, I would have been very glad if the Chief Justice came in and said, from today on, ex-parte communication with me or any member of the judiciary is banned. If you are a party and you want something done to you in litigation, make sure you are filing that in the registry so that it can be made available to your adversary. It should never happen that I am in a dispute with my good friend Kofi Bentel, and then I'm able to write privately to the Chief Justice for something to be done, and he has no knowledge of what it is that I'm writing to him, to the Chief Justice, and then all of a sudden we think that is okay. That is not okay. No matter how much you come out to explain what it is that the court is doing, as long as you allow such an archaic practice, then the public perception will not be changed. So actions, stop these ex-parte communications. Second, a few months ago, a former justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Atuguba, came out and said that when he was on the court, there was a time when he was frozen. In other words, he was not put on panels because of some disagreement that he had with the then Chief Justice. This is a very serious allegation. And I would have expected when the Chief Justice came to give this press conference, that would be numero uno, the first thing that he addressed, that, look, we hear you, that you are not happy or you don't understand the process by which we choose our panels. And here is the process, or here is what I'm going to do to make sure that people have confidence in the way the panels are structured. If you just come and give kumbaya speeches on there will be no corruption and so on, people will just listen and say, oh, we've heard all of this before. We want you to have key performance indicators, specific measurable outcomes that 2 months from now or 3 months from now or 6 months from now that we can look at and then see whether or not the things that you are saying are really happening. For instance, I would have preferred for the Chief Justice to come out and say, look, from now on, we are going to set a standard time for filing an application and completing the case. So for all land cases, from the initial filing of the application to completion of the case, the time budget is 24 months. For a family law or divorce case, the time budget is 18 months, and so on and so forth. So for all the cases that we hear in this country, litigants have a fair idea of how long the case is going to be. Obviously, in some cases, we are going to exceed the budget. In some cases, we are going to fall under the budget. But at least there's a budget. And because of the budget, we are able to know when there are variances. And then we can try to investigate the variance to know why in specific cases there have been delays. Another thing that I expected her to talk about, because it is one of the things that clearly allow the public to lose confidence in the court, what happens in election petitions. The court should come out with very clear rules. In my opinion, for instance, if there is a parliamentary election dispute, there should be no midnight injunctions. By midnight injunctions, I mean an injunction given by a high court judge to restrain someone who has been duly elected from being seated in parliament on the day that parliament is being inaugurated. That should never happen. Similarly, when it comes to presidential petition, but all other petitions, as long as we hear the petitioner's case and the court decides that there's a prima facie case and the case should continue, then the election manager should be made the star witness. He or she should be compelled to testify because it is his or her work that is being challenged. And as a duty bearer, he or she should never be in a position to say, well, I'm not going to testify. No, you have to testify. If you don't testify, you are saying there's something about your work that you cannot come out publicly to defend. If the court allows you to get away with that, I don't care how many press conferences that the court is issuing, people will not have confidence in the court.
And this is in direct reference, I believe, to what we saw in the last election petition with the NDC and the current EC chairperson. But stay with me. I want to bring in Kofi into this. Kofi, one of the key things that the Chief Justice talked about today was corruption in the judiciary, and then she goes ahead to talk about what she wants to do to rid the judiciary of corruption. This has been a tag that has been there for a long time. The Afrobarometer tells its own story that the perception is still that a judiciary is corrupt. Does this help at all, this transparency that she's attempting to embark on? But substantively, what must she do to deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, there is a perception. But what we all have to be clear about is that it is not always that perception is reality. But the fact that there is a perception means it has to be dealt with. So I agree that she has to take steps to deal with that. Some of that perception is driven simply by the delays in the system. And I agree with Professor Kweko Asare when he says that there must be a time budget for every case. And these things, until they are done, it seems as if they are impossible. But if you file a case, even, and let's say it's a land case, or it's an estate case, or whatever case there is, there must be a certain conventional wisdom about how long it must take. And in my view, for instance, if you file a land case and the case goes beyond 1 year, it should be flagged and somebody must review it beyond the judge who is handling that particular case. Because then that person with a fresh eye can give some sort of suggestions about how to expedite the case and get rid of it. We don't have time, so I don't want to go into some details. But there are cases which have taken 5 years, and there's no reason why. These things fuel a sense of corruption. If that time budget is exceeded and somebody else looks at the case, there will be a better confidence amongst the players that somebody has not taken money to delay the case or to rule or to do something untoward about it. All that said, let us keep in mind that there are thousands of cases that go to our courts. And I, as a practitioner in the courts, regardless of my complaints around our system, can say confidently that the overwhelming majority of cases and judges conduct themselves properly without corruption. It is not possible that there will not be one or two bad nuts, but it is important for us all to appreciate that the overwhelming majority of our justices are very good. They do their job and they are not corrupt. We should keep working to root out those corrupt ones and the ones that unduly delay cases and bring the whole administration of justice into disrepute. And I think that this Chief Justice should really focus on bringing more IT, more processes, more transparency, so that even if things go wrong for anybody, they will not believe it is the result of corruption. So indeed, we should be minded that these efforts at making the delivery of justice better will actually lead to a reduction in the perception of corruption. But it is indeed a problem, and this should help resolve it.
And we've talked about corruption, but just before we wrap up in a couple of minutes, one minute for you on another subject that is tends to pitch the judiciary against political interests, political parties, etc. This perception of bias. We've seen an NDC statement a couple of weeks back which alleges that. This is not the first time we've seen it. Remember the famous many ways of killing a cat. We've seen it through our political history. How the judiciary is attempting now to give us a new sense of itself. How does it address that problem?
Well, there's a saying that justice must be done and must be seen to be done. And I think that's the challenge that our justices must accept and deliver on. I think too many times justice is not seen to be done. And I believe that the transparency that the present Chief Justice is bringing will help explain why certain things happen the way they happen. The recent case is the case of Honorable Daffy Emefa, and the thinking that one case was expedited, the other case was not expedited. I have been in cases where I think the delays were unexplainable. For instance, the Domelovo case. You have a case where there's a time-bound arrangement. Beyond a certain point, it's moot. That case stayed there. We tried and tried and tried. It wasn't called. The man was fired, and then later it was ruled that he was fired unlawfully. At the time, you could have done something about it to save the situation. You didn't do it. So as the person involved, I will feel that you intentionally did something by tweaking the time to make my case a foolish case, even though I have won. It is the job of the Chief Justice and all the Chief Justices or the Justices to make sure that we don't leave the halls of justice feeling that they have put their hands on the scale by tweaking the processes and doing things like these delays. If there are real reasons why these delays happen, they should be explained. I think they owe us that. Until they do that, there will always be the perception that there is bias.
I see. And Mr. Sorry, I have just a minute on that same point of this perception that there is bias against political interests. How does the Chief Justice go about dealing with this particular one?
Oh, you can only do that with your work. You know, when it comes to these things, it's not what you talk about, it's what you show people. You got to be consistent in what it is that you are doing. I also think that our courts tend to want to schedule a hearing for almost every case that is filed. That is unfortunate, especially in an appellate court such as the Supreme Court. When the parties have filed their briefs, it is acceptable. In fact, here in Florida, where I practice, seldom do you even know, do you see who your appellate justices are. You file your briefs, and then some weeks after, you get a note that your judgment is ready. They read the briefs, and they come out with their decision. So if you take the two injunctions that were filed at the Supreme Court, the justices of the Supreme Court could have ruled on both at the same time and can rule now without having the parties appear before them. We know from several precedents what these decisions should be, and I think it has to also be made clear that it is extremely difficult for an individual to injunct either the executive or the parliament. The court should make that very clear. If you don't make that clear, and there are two similar cases, you address one and you don't address one, I don't care how many times you talk, people are still going to have that perception.
Prof, thank you very much. And that's Professor Sari there helping us walk through this. Like the first time it's happened, rare, very rare, showing by the Chief Justice addressing the nation, putting out her vision, and we are scrutinizing that. What are your own thoughts about the war that she's declared on corruption in the judiciary? Send me a WhatsApp 055 1111 997. News Night starts right now.
Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. Whilst the ECG maintains there's no load shedding, Parliament's Mines and Energy Committee has established that the erratic power supply facing the country is because of a power generation deficit.
We are currently not shedding load, so we are not shedding load. It's been confirmed that there's a deficit. Even as at yesterday, they were shedding load. And so clearly this issue of transformers is neither here nor there.
But ECG is tonight fighting back, accusing the power transmitter Gridco of making erratic daily demands for load management that it says has become, quote, an irritation and disturbance to customers. We have exclusive details from the ECG's letter to the Energy Minister following a Gridco complaint, and then later.
When the people bring their jobs here, like they want it fast, so you don't have any reason to delay them. But since Monday up to now, we don't have light here. So all the work that they brought, they have to take them back.
Whilst the power play in the sector continues, we'll tell you the devastating effects the recent power outage is having on the printing press business in the first episode of our Doomsaw Diaries. You want to stay for details of that. Also tonight, don't spare anyone who will use social media to incite violence and create a fear and panic before, during and after election 2024. That's the Interior Minister Henry Quartey's charge to the IGP, Dr. George Akufu-Dampare.
Your statements, your actions should not incite the public. It must not create fear and panic in the public. Free speech, free association, free movement, but we must be guided by our statements not to create fear and panic.
We'll give you details of that when we get into the election headquarters.
And in business, World Bank projects about 2.5% end-of-year growth rate for Ghana, slightly lower than government targets captured the 2024 budget.
And in sports, following the historic semi-final qualification, Dreams FC is now targeting the $2 million cash prize in the CAF Confederations Cup.
And much later, the National Health Insurance Authority to provide one free medical checkup for every Ghanaian annually in new vision to promote healthier population and drive down the country's disease burden.
I'm saying that let's start by screening the diseases under a package earlier for every Ghanaian to benefit from it.
We have exclusive details as the scheme plans to enroll every unregistered Ghanaian on their next visit to the hospital. That and more in tonight's edition of Newsnight. You will to join us with your thoughts and your comments via WhatsApp is 055 11 997. I am Emefa Apawu.
And my name is Mensah. And tonight, a feud between the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, and the power transmitter Gridco in the midst of the current power crisis that has left many homes in darkness is intensifying. The ECG is tonight accusing Gridco of making erratic daily demands for load management that it says has become, quote, an irritation and a disturbance to customers.
Well, this is contained in the letter to the Energy Minister exclusively secured by Joy News. It is in response to Gridco's complaint to the Minister accusing the ECG of failing to comply with load management directives, which it says threatened to collapse the entire national grid. Well, head of our energy desk, Samuel Kojo Brace, joins us in studio with details of that exclusive letter that Joy News has secured a copy of. So, Brace, does the ECG admit Gridco's accusations to start with?
Yeah, they do. And to quote them, it says it is a fact that Gridco routinely directs ECG system operators to drop load at some of our bulk supply points, that's the BSPs. But the issue has been the inadequacy between the time these requests are received and the time these requests must be effected to sustain the integrity of the power system and also for ECG to inform its customers.
Now, does ECG provide any evidence to back their position on this?
Exactly. They list a litany of it. It says they say that it is worthy to know that between January and March 2024, 64 requests were received from Gridco for load management. Out of this, 40 were for peak period. That's between 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. and 24 for off-peak, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Load management. Now, it says out of the 40 peak load requests, 35 of them were received within an hour to the peak period. There were only 5 instances where ECG received a request within 2 to 3 hours of the peak period. Out of the 24 off-peak load requests, 3 of them were received within 30 minutes to the off-peak, period, while remaining 21 instances were received far off the off-peak. Now, they continue to say that for January and February 2024, ECG received 17 requests from Gridco to drop load ranging between 80 megawatt to 510 megawatt. In addition, Gridco also disconnected feeders and BSPs. ECG's compliance for this period was 100%. So they are telling us that between January and February, anytime Gridco asks them to drop, they do. But ECG, you remember that Gridco was telling us earlier in their statement that they had to go and disconnect some of the BSPs. ECG is confirming that here. Now, they again say that for March 2024, ECG received 46 requests from Gridco to drop load ranging between 80 to 500 megawatt. Due to system challenges within ECG's network, we were able to comply with 15, that is 33% out of the 46 requests. In addition to the loads dropped by ECG, Gridco also routinely disconnected additional ECG feeders and BSPs. They then go ahead to say that a compliance rate of 100% for January and February and 33% for March does not support the assertion being made by Gridco that ECG does not comply with load management requests from the SCC.
Well, now clarify for us though, is this the first time the ECG is making this complaint against Gridco?
Well, ECG tells us that this is not the first time, because they say that, the reservation about the late receipt of this instruction from Gridco on load management was tabled for a discussion in which ECG itself was there, Gridco was there, as well as the energy minister. At that said meeting, ECG made it clear that it is important that notice for load management must be received latest by 3 p.m. on that day to enable ECG to plan adequately for that load shedding, because their customers need to be aware of what's going to happen. Else it becomes erratic, and that's why people complain.
And we are now getting a clear sense of what this alleged erratic demands for load management mean for customers.
Because ECG says that it is important that such requests for load management from Gridco are received between 3 to 4 hours prior to peak or off-peak periods. This will afford, like I said earlier, them the opportunity to plan and execute the load management in such a manner that customers are not unduly affected. For example, they then give clear examples that customers who may have previously suffered outages due to ECG's internal fault or planned maintenance works should not suffer a double jeopardy with another outage from a load management request from Gridco or due to the operation of the automatic frequency load shedding relays installed at the BSPs. It is the planning and management of such incident that makes it imperative for ECG to be informed well in advance about any request for load management by Gridco.
Okay.
And this last one, I guess, sums up the ECG issue. Quote, it is noted that requests from Gridco for load management are no longer for emergency operations, but are made on routine day-to-day basis, becoming an irritation and disturbance to customers.
Yeah, exactly. And again, they again say that beyond the specific examples, ECG wishes to state that on April 4, 2024, during peak hours, Gridco, after having confirmed earlier that there would be no load management during peak hours, later requested ECG to drop 100 megawatt at 19:28, so 7:28 hours, and proceeded thereafter to unilaterally disconnect the following BSPs, and they named them. And they are saying that all of that, does not help their customers, because their customers need to be informed earlier so they can plan. So ECG, the same infighting is being
and the feud continues. They started with ECG and the PURC. Now we're seeing the ECG and the Gridco as well. But it remains to be seen what the response of the Energy Ministry was to this particular letter written by ECG on the complaints against Gridco. Irritation, they've described it when it comes to the demands that has been made by Gridco to the ECG.
Yeah.
But a lot has happened on the energy front, and in the latest twist, Parliament's Committee on Mines and Energy has established that power generators are unable to operate to full capacity due to financial constraints. Well, this was contained or confirmed when all stakeholders in the value chain of the power sector were summoned by the committee to comprehensively address the situation.
So what exactly is the current power situation? Let's bring in Kofi J with our research desk, joins us in the studio with more. Kofi, it has now been established, despite the previous back and forth, that the power fluctuation is a result of generation capacity. Now, take us through what we know about the current installed capacity and power in the megawatts available for supply.
Well, so as we understand, according to Gridco's current update, we have installed capacity of about 5,000 megawatts. If you look at the generation capacity, which is also about 5,000 megawatts, but the dependable capacity, which if we subtract how much our peak load, which is somewhere around 3,700 megawatts, then we have a deficit of more than 1,000 megawatts to actually, cover, which is stemming from maintenance and then also fuel supply shortages as well as fault events.
Okay, so those are the key things. And the Gridco itself says that among these three, the key issue is gas, which is not available for them to use. But also there have been concerns raised about the effective use of the gas that is available. How about the debt in any sector? Another huge part of the problem, as you know.
Right, so let's start from the IMF program, which puts Ghana's energy sector debt at 1.6 billion US dollars. Now, according to the president, after some reconciliation with the IPPs, we are looking at a debt of 1.4 billion. We also heard from the governor of the central bank, who says that out of the $600 million that we received from the IMF as second tranche, we use more than $400 million to pay energy sector debt arrears. Now, let's look at how much we need as a country to buy fuel in 2024. In total, the Energy Commission estimates $1.2 billion. That's the total amount we need to buy fuel. If we do the math, it means we need $3.3 million every day and $98 million every month, Evans.
Bottom line, it's the reason why we're struggling to buy the fuel, because that's where the debt is accumulated over the time. And you may be sleeping in darkness tonight because of everything you've heard. The ECG tell the energy minister, the Gridco is also reporting the ECG. Now the demand for load management is becoming an irritation and a disturbance to customers. Pretty interesting. A lot is happening in that sector. We are not done yet, Emefa, because as you know, Parliament has been dealing with this matter over the weekend, and it continued today. Samuel Mbura has been to Parliament, just returned. Mbura, what was the position of the ECG when you posed a question about the ongoing load shedding?
Well, Evans, Managing Director of ECG, Samuel Dubik Mahama, insists the power outages as witnessed is as a result of ongoing maintenance works of their transformers, and emphasized there is no load shedding.
The assurance is that we are doing our best. The lights are going to stay on. Most of the transformers that we spoke about and the intensification exercises are almost done, so we should just stay positive. There will be a proper statement as to the way forward.
Are you shedding load?
We are currently not shedding load, so we are not shedding load.
And then you spoke to the ranking of the committee.
Well, John Jonapo said that it was revealed and established during the interrogation of stakeholders in the power value chain that there is a deficit in power generation, and this dates back to September 2023. So what is happening now is a load management by the ECG.
Well, it's obvious that it's a generation challenge. It's been confirmed that there's a deficit. Even as at yesterday, they were shedding load. And so clearly this issue of transformers is neither here nor there. The root cause of the problem, as was confirmed at the meeting, is fuel. And that if they get fuel, this load shedding will be curtailed. And so we've had an engagement with the ministry. They've assured that government is looking for money to procure the fuel. We asked for some definitive dates that was not forthcoming. They just said that they are doing their best. And so the committee has directed that would-be customers who will be affected ought to be informed ahead of time. So in a nutshell, it's a generation challenge arising from fuel. There's load shedding, there's a generation deficit, and the utilities have to inform customers before their lights are taken out.
So
that's all.
Is there a definite timeline for them to issue a timetable for Ghanaians?
We've told them immediately.
So
it's always been the situation. In fact, from September, there's always been a generation deficit, and that is confirmed. With the Parliamentary Committee, you cannot come and dribble anybody. And we put straight, direct questions to them, and they answered in the affirmative. So there's
they
a
were
deficit.
under oath, that's what I'm told.
Yeah, if you appear before Parliament, you cannot lie. If you lie, it's perjury. And I can tell you they were very honest. They said the truth right from generation to distribution, the challenges, the generation deficit we are having. Yesterday there was load shedding. The reason being that there's inadequate fuel. If they can procure fuel, the load shedding will curtail. They were not very definitive as to the date when they can get the fuel, and so we've directed that until the fuel is gotten, they should communicate to affected customers way ahead of time with immediate effect so that they can plan their life.
So that day is the ranking. Who else was before Parliament?
Well, so the power sector players who appeared before the committee were the ECG, VRA, Gridco. We had PURC, Energy Commission, Ghana Gas, Ministry of Energy. So they'll look at the generation point, which is the VRA. If there's any challenge, explain to us what the challenge is. The distributor being Gridco, what is the challenge in transporting power to ECG to supply to the people? So these were some of the issues that they addressed, and all of them met at the same meeting to address some of these challenges.
So the committee, what is it that they plan to do now? Now they've had everybody.
Yeah, so after this, the committee would write its report and then add in their recommendations what they have observed, then present it before the Speaker of Parliament. Then the Speaker of Parliament will now make consequential orders, if there are any, for the ministry to take action.
Whatever it is, I can assure you that because power is critical to the whole economy, money should be found by even the Ministry of Finance, to if there's any shortfall in funds, so that we can generate enough power. That should be found. You see, because you can't have it both ways. If you don't want to find the money to generate the power, you won't have power, and you need power to propel the economy, and it's cyclical. You come back to square one. It's a vicious cycle we should avoid, and that is how it's going to be. The only thing which is very critical is that let's aid ECG to plug in the loopholes. So ECG will generate a lot of money, and then it comes to the cash waterfall, and those who have contributed in generating power will be paid, and then it goes on like that. If there is under recovery of revenue, they will not be able to meet the obligations they owe to the power generators and Gridco by extension. So this is how the situation is all like.
So, Honorable, the meeting of the committee ends today, right? After that, what happens?
Well, we will have to come out with a communique, as to the way forward. And then we monitor everybody who is in the value chain, that we achieve what we are all looking for.
And that there is a chairman on the Energy Committee is Samuel Atacha. Also joining me right now is his ranking, and John Jinapo, a ranking member of the Energy Committee. But I'm also joined by Nana Moisi, Executive Director of the Institute for Energy Securities. And I want to start with him. Nana Moisi, so we've heard a lot from this committee. Again, in addition to the PULC's directive to the ECG for a load management timetable, the committee has also directed SABE. And from what we heard, they are supposed to put this out immediately. Today, Monday just ended. We haven't seen that yet. What should happen now? Hello, Nana. Hello, Nana Mwesi. I may have lost him there. Let me bring in Mr. Jinapo, who's joining me on the line. Mr. Jinapo, I heard you say that you were expecting the load management timetable immediately after you met the ECG. We haven't seen the load management timetable yet. Have you heard from the ECG why?
Not yet. It was obvious. Now there's no debate. There's a shortage in generation, and the principal cause is lack of money to procure fuel. At the committee, both ECG and Gridco, VRA, the ministry, all the stakeholders, PULC, Energy Commission, confirmed that they've been shedding load since January. They confirmed that the plants are available, and that if they get fuel, this load shedding will be over. The critical question was, when would they get fuel? The ministry indicated they were leading a process with the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance hasn't confirmed when they will get money to procure the fuel. And so in the interim, the committee directed to all of them that there should be a load management timetable on a daily basis so people can plan their lives. I'm surprised ECG hasn't adhered to the committee's directive. I'm sure that the chairman will notify him and will notify the speaker and leadership, and we'll take it from there.
And you've also seen the ECG's response to the energy minister following Gridco's earlier complaint that ECG wasn't following the load management directives as and when it comes. ECG says Gridco is not giving them enough notice, and the demands for load shedding has become a daily matter instead of being one to deal with emergency situation. It's become an irritation, a disturbance of customers. What's your response to that?
That's very worrying. But there's a coordinating ministry, and if both sides have communicated to the ministry, I expect that the ministry, being the supervisory ministry, would call both sides, iron out the difference, and ensure that communication is improved. All we are saying is that even if we can't produce the power, let would-be affected customers know in advance so they can plan their lives, whilst we take steps to ensure that we get the fuel. My worry, and this is serious for me, is that the president has directed that we curtail supply of power to our neighboring countries. What it means is that we are not getting the foreign exchange. I suggested to the minister that why don't you supply the power, ring fence the forex that will come from the neighboring countries, and use that to procure fuel. They said they will look at it, but I thought that's a better option because if our neighbors eventually realize that we are not a reliable partner, and for instance, Burkina decides to also build a dam, Akosomo is dead. Because the dam, the source of the water is up north. If they impound it, like Egypt and Ethiopia are battling it out, it's really going to affect it. So this problem has several dimensions. It has serious implications. And I would plead with the president that he should take this matter serious, as well as the head of the economic management team. They should look for money. Let's procure fuel, stabilize supply of power, and then we deal with the rest going forward.
And that's the ranking on the Energy Committee. Nana Mwesi is Executive Director of the Institute for Energy Securities. Joins me now. Nana, so back to the fundamental question that everybody has been asking, including yourselves and customers listening to us. They want that load management timetable. This is a second directive issued by a body legally mandated to do so. The Parliament Select Committee on Energy has again directed ECG to put out a load management timetable. We haven't seen that. The ranking says they possibly will now have to call the attention of the Speaker to it. What's your reaction to what must happen now to deal with that particular problem?
Good evening to you, Evans, Emefa, and your listeners. Very unfortunate. But at least, beyond the PRC, we've now heard from the Parliamentary Select Committee on Mines and Energy. Their current position and their supposed directive for a load shedding timetable indicate clearly that there is a recognized power supply deficit in the sector. By their requesting for a timetable with respect to the loads being shared, the committee is advocating for transparency and accountability in managing the deficit. But if the ECG refuses to put out the timetable as requested by this body so mandated by our own constitution to have an oversight over the energy and mines sector, you know that if they fail to implement this timetable, then it suggests a lack of transparency on the part of ECG. What do they have to hide? And why would they be reluctant to put out a timetable? Evans, the refusal, despite the findings of the committee, also raises questions about accountability and oversight within the power subsector. It indicates clearly that the reluctance to address the underlying issue or to cooperate with regulatory authorities and elected officials responsible for the sector. Let the ECG know that if they fail to heed to recommendation of the committee, it may lead to an eroding of public confidence and trust in the entity. The timetable is a must-have.
And that there is Nana Mwesi, Executive Director of the Institute for Energy Securities. And Emefa, you know, this is a subject that is so central to everybody. I didn't have electricity this morning. And there's far more to this than meets the eye. We'll be talking about that because we want to have a national dialogue on this particular matter that will look at this holistically, more comprehensively. And we'll share with you some data that will startle you, because is this an ECG problem? Is it a Gridco problem, or is it a VRA problem, right? And ECG is speaking to their transformers. Gridco is speaking to the transmission that they have. What about VRA? And what really is happening when it comes to the gas that we have and how efficiently we are deploying the gas to some plants that could give us far more for less fuel, and that could give you far less for more fuel. It's quite a complicated area, but we'll try and unpack it all when we have a national dialogue on this subject.
And if you've been following our national dialogues, very comprehensive. We bring all those who matter in the industry to speak to the key concerns that have been raised so far when it comes to the energy sector, and whether it is Doomso or Doom CSA. On the sound of that, it's time for our Doomso Diaries.
Doom, so, doom.
And I've been talking about Doomso or Doom-CSA as the Energy Minister, Matthew Poku Prempeh, chooses to call it. There's no denying that the ongoing intermittent power supply is taking a toll on many businesses and households. Evans didn't have lights this morning. And in the first part of Joy News Doomso Diaries, Kenneth JC explores the devastating effect Doomso is having on the printing industry, which has led to some workers in this sector being told to stay at home.
This building houses a cluster of printing shops. On a regular working day, they print everything from receipts, brochures, to calendars. But these days, they print almost nothing. This shop has a minimum of 4 workers, but now barely 2 employees show up at work. The reason? Intermittent power supply, popularly known as Doomso. This job requires uninterrupted electricity supply to function. But with the recent power outages, the shop has been rendered redundant.
When the people bring their jobs here like this, they want it fast. So you don't have any reason to delay them. But since Monday up till now, we don't have light here. So all the work that they brought, they have to take them back. So at the end of the day, you spend money for transport, you come and sit down here, you have to eat. You know, as for stomach, it doesn't know whether you are working or not. So you come, you eat, and you go back home. So it's not helping us at all. Now it's worse, it's worse. The business itself was down because most of the things are being printed from China now. Okay, so the small stuff that we are getting here, with this Doomso, everything is now zero. So we are down, cry. We are actually sinking.
Just like most Guineans, these workers are calling for a timetable. They say a load shedding timetable will help them plan their work schedule so they are able to meet clients' deadlines and do not lose contracts due to unexpected power outages.
I think that should be the best way. Because if I know that today, Tuesday, I won't be having light here, I won't bother myself to take car from a far place and come and sit down, just to come and sit down here. I will have prepared or organized myself better for it. If I know I will be having a work to do, maybe in the night, I will arrange myself to come and do it in the night. So by the morning, when the light is off, then I will go and rest. So the timetable is very necessary to be very helpful.
Oh, how about the timetable? You need a timetable to schedule our this thing. If there is timetable, you know that tomorrow there is no light. You can stay home and manage it. Maybe the money you use is to take care. You can manage it. And the next day, you know that the next day the light will come.
But do they have a standby generator that will at least keep their business running in the event of Doomso? I asked.
Yeah, actually, we were having one. Since for some time when the lights came to stability, yeah, we actually took the generator away because we don't have space here. And where the generator is, the children most of the times they normally play around, set fire and so on. So the other time it was about to, catch fire. So my boss took it away. Thinking maybe now the lights are stable.
4 stores away is another shop that performs a similar function. Not as big as the previous one, but of equal importance. This is where they stitch the books and other printed materials before they are sent to their destinations. But the recent power outages mean they will have to sometimes stitch the books manually.
We are using this machine for the stitching. You used to stitch this book. If there is no light, you can't use it. Yesterday, they made light off around dawn 4:35 that way. Light came around 12 o'clock this afternoon. Sometimes you can't work. This one is printing. If there is no light, you can't print. After printing, they'll bring it to you. Here is the finishing side. If there is no light, there is nothing going on. So,
the last time I came here, I saw a number of people, but today you are the only person.
Because of the light was since yesterday, this afternoon, 12 o'clock before the light came, because of that, they are not.
The impact of intermittent power outages on these businesses has been dire. Some staff have been told to stay home for the time being. The rest that show up either sleep, read a book, or engage in an activity or two to while away time.
Well, that's it there for the Doomsort diaries. What's your own diary this weekend, Emefa Power, on the Doomsort situation?
That's what local official anytime virus.
Oh, you don't have
We are
Doomsort?
used to it. Pardon?
Oh, I thought you were going to say, because I thought there's a part of Accra that have never experienced it before.
There was 2 areas I'm sure they said they haven't experienced, but that's for our area. Yeah. Now I think I'm used to it.
Used to it. Well, what's your own diary saying when you're listening to us right now? 05511119997. Tell us what you're writing in your diary right now when it comes to that Doomsort experience. Everybody has one. Business will come with details for what is happening in that world right after this.
And gentlemen, Telecel is here! Telecel, connecting energies.
Great news is here. Batmat is here again. XXL clearance sale. Guaranteed savings. From now till the end of April, the big sale continues. Get discounts of up to 70% off sanitary wares, light tiles, waterproofing, and all other product families. It's the year to get things done. Visit our showroom at the North Industrial Area next to the Winners Chapel, Ghana. Don't miss out. Batmat, welcome home.
And George Afe is here with the latest from the world of business. Hello, George.
He was sharing his Doomsort diary.
Yes, he
Well,
was.
coming up in business, World Bank projects about 2.5% end-of-year growth for Ghana, slightly lower than government targets captured in this year's budget. A National Petroleum Authority to press ahead of setting the benchmark prices for petroleum products from April 16, despite industry concerns. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, Sintestanks, and Pepsodent Charcoal and Herbal.
The other day, I visited Kweku at his spunky new office to congratulate him on opening his business. And man, was I impressed. The business is just moving quick. The sales, customers, everything is just working seamlessly. The secret? He said,
it's MTN Business Broadband. In this fast-paced environment, we need fast and reliable internet to support all business types. No laggy online meetings, great download and upload speeds, impeccable business management systems, all inclusive. I mean, you can have it all.
Shout! I signed on immediately.
To enable your business stay ahead and stay connected, make sure you're signed on to the best internet made just for businesses. MTN Business Broadband. Sign up today on broadband.mtn.com.gh and manage your account on my MTN app. Call 0244 308 111 for more information. We are good together everywhere you go.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kingdom Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom, and my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first point of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema Community 1, opposite Olam SHF, Kumasi KNUST campus, UCC Cape Coast, and now at the Marina Mall, Airport City. Or call us 0302-764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website, www.kingdomgh.com.
Water is needed all day, all night. So, remember Syntex tank all day, all night. 7 years warranty. Select any color for free. In no the crack, in no the spoil. Call Accra on 0244 335 168. Kumasi 0505 555 666. Syntax Tank. Are you strong? Are you tough? Water is needed all day, all night. So remember Syntax Tank all day, all night. 7 years warranty. Select any color for free. In no the crack, in no the spoil. Call Accra on 0244 335 168. Kumasi 0505 555 666. Syntax Tank. Are you strong? Are you tough?
Hello, Auntie Araba. Hey, Bugger, how are you doing today? I want to buy Pepsodent Cavity Fighter, but I don't have enough money. So what are you going to do? Can you give me the big size? You know, as for me, I'll pay the balance later.
Today, no credit. I haven't sold much this morning. If you don't have enough money for the big size, why don't you try the 120-gram pack?
There's a 120-gram pack? Introducing the new Pepsodent Cavity Fighter in 120-gram pack size. More affordable and convenient. Get yours today from any supermarket near you. Every smile matters. This advert is FDA approved.
Hello, my name is Mami Akua, an entrepreneur and a mother of two. My work keeps me busy most of the time, and sometimes it takes me away from my family. But the safety and health of my family is very important to me. As a working mother, I cannot afford to take any chances when it comes to matters of health. That is why I signed up for a family healthcare plan from Equity Health Insurance. My family and I have access to over 700 hospitals, clinics, opticians, dentists, pharmacies, and diagnostic centers across the length and breadth of Ghana. With Equity Health Insurance, I no longer have to worry about medical bills. Anytime a member of my family visits a hospital, Equity Health Insurance has got my family and I covered. What about you? Who has got you covered?
Call Equity Health Insurance on 050-660-7910 and talk to them about your family health needs now. Visit equityhealthinsurance.com for more information. Equity Health Insurance, here for you.
Show time, good life time. Paddy, how is your good life?
Hey, before you attack that sumptuous variety of foods with Toto, do yourself a favor.
Wash your hands with soap under running water. You pour before you eat, and at all other critical moments. That is,
before you cook, after you visit the toilet, change your baby's diaper,
and when you return home from anywhere.
Let's all come aboard Good Life by washing our hands with soap under running water and at all other critical moments to keep the germs away from our family. Good Life, live it well. It's an everyday thing. Good Life from Ghana Health Service and partners with support from USAID.
Welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, the World Bank is projecting about 2.5% growth rate for Ghana by the end of this year. Now, this is slightly lower than government's target of 2.8% by December this year, as captured in the 2024 budget. This was contained in the World Bank Africa Pulse report released today. Meanwhile, the World Bank is also expecting inflation to end the year at around 20%. This projection is far higher than the 17% that the Bank of Ghana is looking at realizing by the end of this year. On the other hand, depreciation of the Ghana cedi should be pegged around 13%, as the World Bank is projecting for the local currency. Let's still stay on this Africa Pulse score because the country's fiscal situation is expected to improve greatly in the coming months when it reaches a deal with its external creditors. This was captured in the Africa Pulse report released by the World Bank. There is more in this report.
The World Bank believes that this avenue of debt restructuring is one of the surest ways to bring Ghana's debt situation to appreciable levels. The country was recently classified as debt distressed after its recent debt levels were described as unsustainable. This resulted in Ghana getting into an IMF program and negotiations with its external creditors to restructure its debt. The Washington-based lender believes that the debt restructuring deal with external creditors will also help improve Ghana's debt situation. The improved debt situation is expected to deal with Ghana's revenue and deficit, which has been a major challenge for the country. The bank was, however, quick to add that improving Ghana's fiscal situation will also be dependent on the recovery of the global economy.
And that is a business desk report. Meanwhile, economist Dr. Dusa Kodie is downplaying challenges, revenue mobilization posing a major challenge to Ghana's program with the IMF. It's coming after it met that the IMF visiting team is worried about the end-of-year revenue target being affected due to suspension of some taxes in the 2024 budget. Dusa Kodie believes that fiscal consolidation being affected should be a major threat to Ghana's program with the IMF.
Currently, the BOG is practicing 0% financing. So, in other words, if Ghana government needs revenue, they cannot turn their attention to the Bank of Ghana because they will not mind them. We are only calling for a support because the fiscal burden, the greater part of it has to do with the interest payment, domestic interest payment and external interest payment. Government has successfully, about 80% successfully conducted the domestic debt exchange, which has made some savings. It is projected that government will make about 50 billion cedis savings. And then if successful, they are also likely to make about $10 billion savings in the external debt exchange. So we are all waiting on the Paris Club in China and all other external creditors to help Ghana restructure our debt, to give us some relief, to provide some savings. And when successful, and I'm sure when successful, the financial burden on the government of Ghana will be lighter and the program will continue to be on.
Economist Dr. Edu Sakodie. Now, the National Petroleum Authority has indicated that it will go ahead setting the price benchmark of petroleum products from April 16 this month. Now, this is despite concerns raised by some industry players that have described the program as anti-free market program. Basta Sunti is head of economic regulations at the National Petroleum Authority.
It's similar with when we were introducing the sulfur reduction program. There were so many people who said reducing sulfur is not necessary, and if you do it, it will lead to price increments in Ghana. That didn't happen. Even with the price regulation policy we are discussing today, in 2015 when we were implementing it, people were scared that if you do that, OMCs will connive amongst each other, they will form a cartel. And so all these fears were expressed. We did our analysis from where we sit, we understand the industry, and we know that this helps the industry, it helps the consumer ultimately. So the concerns which I've heard about this price floor is that it takes away competition from the market. And we are saying that that is not accurate because what brings about competition in the market today is the margins of the companies which are keep repeating. That margin is not part of the price floor that will be set, and therefore the companies have every room to compete today as they are doing with the price floor. The price floor, as I've said again, is to address a peculiar issue to ensure that Ghana's pricing policy from the day it was introduced to ensure full cost recovery of investment. That is the objective of the price floor, to ensure that this objective is being met. So it doesn't take away competition from the market.
Basta Sunti is head of economic regulations at the National Petroleum Authority. The Bank of Ghana has indicated that it is willing to scrutinize and approve a new bank if the request is made. Now, this is a response to a question during the recent Monetary Policy Committee meeting on whether there's any request on the table. Responding to this question, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, says they haven't shut the door for any request
in the banking sector in Ghana. And the reasons are not far-fetched. I mean, banking is a profitable business in Ghana. So I'm not surprised that we still have investors that are looking at, putting money into that sector. Hopefully we might have somebody formally apply for a new banking license before the end of the year. But for now, we haven't received any formal application.
Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison. And that's all for business on News Night. Back to you, Emefa.
Thank you very much. George, since you refuse to share your diary with us, your doom, yours is so actually, there's no doom in your case, but we have some messages, people sharing their doom so diaries with us. It's 055-1111-997. There's this one from Nana Yao, says, Dear Diary, remember that elevators don't elevate you during doom so. They put you in a stationary and hot situation. Take the stairs like those who know better. And this one from Kofi Seydou in Konongo says, whether it is doom so or doom CSA, there is doom. The government should swallow its pride and stop the semantics and do the needful by immediately supplying Ghanaians with a doom so timetable. Well, that's the directive also from Parliament. Well, and this one from Kofi Protocol says, Emefa, so doom so is back. What has happened to ESTA proceeds since 2017? And this one also also says there's a message that's from Courage inside Angloga. Says under JM is Dumso, but under NPP is not Dumso. Posterity will judge us all. That's a Courage's message he sends in. And this one says Gridco has had to disconnect erratically daily in order to save the system because the ECG has refused to produce a load management timetable. The ECG leadership just don't respect Ghanaians, hence the continuous show of arrogance. The ECG leadership should be held for using funds to pay for purchase power to rather purchase 200 motorbikes for the police. SAD BB Nofke sends that one in. Maybe we'll take a final one, Evans. And this one says the accusations and counter accusations between ECG and Gridco is an indication of how bad everything has become in the country. Agbe sends that one from Adaklu Chirefe. Some of your messages, interesting submissions there. You've sent them in. Keep them coming via WhatsApp. Let's do sports now. Mubarak has the very latest.
Yeah, I'm from Musbah here.
Oh,
well,
anyway,
anyway, it's Dreams FC. I mean, they are dominating the headlines. Any diaries?
What's your Doomsday situation in your area?
I think in my area, it has quite improved.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's
like
been
the entire of last week.
For a while.
Yeah, I haven't seen
great.
Light of it has improved. Yeah, well, Dreams FC, they are just 2 steps away from earning, guess what, $2 million in the CAF Confederations Cup. Now, of course, they defeated Stade Malien 3-2 on aggregate on Sunday at the Barbara Sports Stadium in Kumasi to book their first ever semi-final appearance in the competition. Now, for this achievement, the Guinean side is guaranteed an accumulated cash prize of $750,000. Emefa, for making it to the semi-finals, Dreams FC now have guaranteed $750,000. Wow. Now, they have a date, semi-final date with Zamalek late in April. If they are able to beat the Egyptian giant, who won the competition from some 5 years ago, their prize money will increase to $1 million. Now, if they go one step further to make history and win the trophy, they will earn $2 million. Now, the head coach, Karim Zito, says his boys, despite the semi-final qualification, have got their eyes on the ultimate.
We are going to start preparing because where we've reached now, we've almost are going to the ultimate. So it will be more difficult and we have to work hard if we want to make anything. But at the end of the day, we will not allow this qualification to put us down. We are going to fight. They've seen it. Yeah, it was more difficult now when we went there. I told them we are going to meet the same. This opposition will be better. Will be more difficult than what we had over there. So I think now people will take it serious now when we go to the semi-finals. But trust me, we'll be there.
Yeah, that's Karim Zito there saying that they'll keep their eyes on the ultimate and hopefully they can bring home that $2 million cash. So they'll play Zamalek in the semi-finals. If they're able to overcome Zamalek, they will face either USM Oje or RS Berkane in the finals. Well, Events Champions League returns
Before
tomorrow.
that, though, if we support them to get the money, what will be our share? Is there a commission for us?
As in individually, they'll pay tax. They'll use to fix Doomso. And it shall be well with all of us. But well, of course, Champions League action returns tomorrow, and we're going to bring you live commentary at 7 p.m. here on your Superstation. And Arsenal will play in Bayern Munich, and Manchester City will be playing Real Madrid. So. First leg, Arsenal hosting Bayern Munich at the Emirates, and Real Madrid will be hosting Manchester City. Not sure if you got any predictions, but we'll wait for it tomorrow.
Yeah, let's see. For those of us who are not going to be participating this year or next year for the foreseeable future, we don't want any predictions.
You might participate next year.
No,
you're not too.
Come on, please don't.
We're talking about my
We both support Manchester United, Apawu and myself.
Look at the performance yesterday. Charlie.
You look at that performance and you're happy. Thank you very much. So we have no predictions. We just watch those play.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just sit by the fence, and just enjoy the game. Thank you very much, Ms. Bao. That's it for sports. It's News Night. It's on Joy 99.7 FM. And there's some good news from the National Health Insurance Authority.
And tonight, the Chief Executive of the National Health NHIA, Dr. Da Costa Boaji, has unveiled an ambitious plan to ensure that every Ghanaian receives at least one annual medical checkup. When was the last time you had an annual medical checkup?
Have
you had it this year?
January. yes. I do every year. My birthday is a date for me. Anytime a birthday comes, I need to go for it. Now, this initiative is part of his vision to address the country's existing health threats and proactively identify potential risk, ultimately fostering a healthier population nationwide. In a yet-to-be-heard interview with Joy News' Raymond Aqua, Dr. Da Costa Abuaji announced that Ghanaians who are not yet registered under the scheme will be captured when they visit the hospital for their checkup.
Under the promotive preventive benefit package, I have singled out just one important thing that the nation needs, the medical check. And I'm saying that it doesn't take much to obviously do that. So whether you are sick or not, I'm giving you the opportunity to go to the medical, to go to hospital settings and just have your vitals checked. We will send you a text message. When it's because we have the data, so we'll send you a text message. We have our membership, so we'll send you a text message to remind you. Just go to any health facility and check your vitals under that benefit package. Now, under what we call the Ottawa Charter, okay, point 5 says that we should reorient health services towards
prevention is better than cure.
Under the promotive preventive Ghanaian, in any way, every Ghanaian do pay for the NHIS by indirect tax. Yes. So what I'm just saying, and it will help us to even boost our membership anyway. The fact of the matter is, because every Ghanaian pays for it, we need to also address the equity component.
That's true.
Okay, so whilst addressing the equity component, we can use the medical check. You see, bear in mind, it's not every Ghanaian who is sick. Okay, but I'm saying that let's start by screening the diseases under a package earlier for every Ghanaian to benefit from. In fact, this came in my research question because Ghanaians were saying that they were not paying for the NHIA because they do not benefit from it directly. And I'm saying that with this.
Oh, you know that?
I know that.
I see.
And I'm saying that, you see, for them to benefit directly, let's at least entice them and give them at least something. And by that, they or the Ghanaian or Ghanaians will actually be interested and register. So when we are doing your medical check, what will happen? Will you not be interested to register?
That's the CEO of the National Health Insurance Authority, Dr. Da Costa Abuaji. There, you want to look out for that interview with Raymond Aqua air on Upfront on Wednesday on the Joy News channel.
And this is your election headquarters. It's brought to you by Petrosol, the clean fuel in full quantity, CIMA, the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, CIMA, and AICPA and CIMA together as the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, and the German Ozone Medical Center, Alternative Therapy, Dental, Wellness and Beauty. The Minister for Interior, Henry Quartey, has charged the IGP and the police service to go after persons whose actions and comments will incite violence and cause fear and panic in the upcoming elections and make them face the full rigors of the law.
Well, according to the minister, actions of these persons, if left unchecked, may incite violence and jeopardize peace during the elections. He made this call when he paid a working visit to the police headquarters in Accra.
2024 is around the corner. And by God, so long as we live on this earth, I can assure you that we will ensure that this election is free and fair. I want to repeat that we will not interfere in the elections. We will allow a free, fair, and a transparent elections. And also, just to let you know that government will continue to retool the police service. It means before the elections, we shall do our best to give the Ghana police more accoutrement to be able to discharge your duties professionally. We have, I'm told, that the regional commanders are here. Regional commanders, by the structure of the Act 1030 Security and Intelligence Agencies Act, play a very strategic role, a very key role in protecting lives and properties and ensuring law and order in your respective regions. I want to appeal to you as you go back to your regions. From tomorrow, make sure that your contributions at RegSec in ensuring that peace prevails in all the regions. So collectively, we can have a country that is free, a country that is peaceful, in readiness for the 2024 elections. IGP, I know that we have passed a law in Parliament, the forced publication. Social media has become a space where everybody threatens everybody and says anything anyhow. As IGP, you have the powers with you. People sit in the comforts of their rooms and they threaten. Oh, on the day of elections, anybody who makes those remarks will go after you, because that is what the law says. Your statements, your actions should not incite the public. It must not create fear and panic in the public. Free speech, free association, free movement, but we must be guided by our statements not to create fear and panic.
Interior Minister Henry Quartey on the part of the police, the IGP George Akufu Dampare says the police will leave no stone unturned to ensure a peaceful election.
During this year election, where we need to ensure that before, during, and after the election, we work together as a people, as one country, as one people, with one soul, with one heart, with one purpose, to keep this country safe. And that, from the commitment from my colleagues in uniform, both within the police service and the other security agencies, we want to give that assurance to the people of Ghana that we will stop at nothing. And I mean, we will stop at nothing to ensure that these elections pass off peacefully in a manner that will make us continue to set the pace for the rest of the continent to follow.
And that's the IGP Dampare speaking at that event where the Interior Minister paid a courtesy call on the police service.
Now, legal practitioners are tonight advocating for an amendment to the Children's Act, specifically to provide clarity on the permissible age for betrothals. Addressing the issue on yesterday's episode of The Probe on the Joy News channel, they emphasized the need to eliminate ambiguity in the law. Maxwell Agbogba has more.
The argument that the marriage ceremony between the Gbobu Ulomo and the underaged girl was a betrothal was also made by former Attorney General and President of the Gadangbe Council, Ni Ayikwe Otu. The legal practitioner Martin Kpebu says the framing of the law is problematic, calling for an amendment of the Children's Act.
The thing is that, let's be very clear, and in law, once you haven't set that minimum age in that section 14, we need to tread cautiously. Look at 14. It says that a person shall not force a child to be what? Betrothed.
Exactly.
You shall not force. So the way the law is written is problematic, because then it means that there is a certain age that the child can consent to what? Betrothal. All of these gymnastics we are doing, to be very honest with you, the best way out is that we need to amend the Children's Act to state clearly at what age betrothal can happen.
Ranking member of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Bernard Ahiafo, says there is a legal problem that must be looked at.
Yes, law is dynamic. Law is an instrument of social engineering. It must be an aid to development. But what then is betrothal? Betrothal is a formal engagement to be married. It is a mutual promise or a contract for a future marriage. So, having regard to the definition of betrothal, I agree that there is a problem with the law.
Minister of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs Samuel Asamoah Boateng says some aspect of the Ghanaian culture is archaic and must be discarded.
Some of them are so archaic that we have to get rid of it. Some too, there must be some fine line, because I'm talking to some of the chiefs and they say, well, look, sometimes betrothal sometimes preserve the girl from being abused. So they preserve her. And if everybody knows that she's betrothed, don't go there. And it, for them, it's like disciplined. And some families pride themselves that from our clan, we are able to protect our young girls. So there is some positives and negatives.
Chairman of the Human Resource and Development Committee of the Gadangbe Council, Niama Adi, says betrothal is not new to the Ghanaian society.
That a record of betrothal is not new to us. If you read Barbot, J. Barbot, in 1732, a betrothal happened, and specifically page 503, a betrothal happened in Accra between a 40-year-old man and a 7 or 8-year-old child, which was done before a priest. And this child did not become a wife of the man who married her.
Well, that word, that's getting a lot of us talking in the studio. Evans, what is it?
Betrothal.
Okay, I think there should be a state right on this tomorrow on the
Could
Super
you
Morning
is
Show.
listening?
He's listening, yes.
You should put
You
one
give
together
us a
for us
10th
all.
anniversary package.
Even myself, you see how I had to break it down.
Betrothal. Okay.
I had to break it into the syllables to get it right.
Let's get out of here. We have Nana Nsakwa with That's My Opinion. Sleeping youth of the warrior kin. You want to stay for That's My Opinion. I am Emefa Apawu.
And my name is Mensah.